Hello and welcome to the first in our interview with series for the SAN community. This is going to be a monthly series interviewing the very best and the brightest in the local accounting and finance community, exploring the paths they trod from being a student in practice through to the rest of their career, passing on the hints and tips that they learned along the way, as well as to help you and give you the tips, that things that they wish they knew back when they were in practice. So today we are joined by the fantastic Lewis McGrath. Lewis, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, good to be here and being involved with this. So.
No, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for jumping on and being the guinea pig of the first video. So yeah, I guess let's kick it off at the beginning. So if you could just introduce yourself and also your current role where you're working, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so my name's Lewis. My current role is I'm working at Portsmouth Water. My job title is a financial accounting and controls manager. Is my first move out of practice. I've worked in practice since late 2016 in a fairly varied role, working for a number of firms. And before that, worked at a bank. So, yeah.
So before we dive into, I guess, your current role and that move out of practice, let's go back to the very beginning of your career. As you said, you started off in a bank, you then moved into practice. Was kind of finance always something you were interested in? Was that a career that you'd aspired to, or was it just something that you kind of fell into?
No, yeah, it was, slightly boring. Not boring, but I didn't have dreams of it, but yeah, it was always, maths was always my strongest subject. I did business studies at school, which probably lent itself to me going into sort of like a business accounting financy role, and then led on to my college courses that I did, which was accountancy, financial studies and business studies. So yeah, I guess from late in school, I've always sort of gone down that path. And then saw banking when I left college as a route into finance and stuff. But banking is very different to accountancy. So I realised that after a few years being in there, that banking's not quite what you think it is. I mean, like banking in a high street bank anyway.
Right.
So then my move into accountancy came after that. So
cool. So you started out your career, as you said, in banking before moving into a smaller firm. Was that a conscious decision to target a firm of that size, or was it just that it was the local opportunity and that was why you went with the firm of that size?
Yeah, no. So the opportunity was a bit random, to be honest. It was the firm that was local to me. So that sort of helped, and I was aware of it as a local accounting firm anyway. So, but the actual opportunity came from an ex-girlfriend's best friend who worked there. And she passed my CV because she knew I had an interest in going into accountancy, but the entry into it, from working in banking, you think it's going to lead into, accountancy, finance, that kind of thing, but it doesn't really, because they're not really transferable skills necessarily. Then it's not the same. It comes across like it's the same sort of thing, but it's not really. So, yeah, she passed my CV on to Morris Crocker, which was the firm that I joined, and it was just my route into accountancy. I really wanted to be an accountant and get an apprenticeship and go down that route, but trying to get your foot in the door, not straight from college, was quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I find it fascinating. Obviously, I speak to huge amounts of accountants, some that have, dreamed of being an accountant since they were 5, some that fell into it after university or college because there was nothing else to do. And yeah, no two paths into the business and the kind of industry are the same. And it's amazing some of the stories of the people have of friends of friends of friends that put you in touch with somebody, or rather than just the traditional path trod as such.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have a traditional path. Sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. Sometimes.
Yeah, so. Of course. So then you had a bit of time working in a variety of firms in kind of size, doing a bit of audit, a bit of accounts prep. But then towards the end of your time in practice, you ended up with assets who are obviously, they've gone through an awful lot of change over the past, should we say 5-6 years, but a much larger firm focused purely on audit. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just the kind of the path that was laid out in front of you as such?
Yeah, I guess it was a conscious decision. So, I mean, I went through stages in my career really, and changes in mindset. So when I was at Morris Crocker, it was a varied mixed role. So it was accountancy and audit. And I wasn't that keen on audit, to be honest, back when I was in Morris Crocker. And I think this is the thing, when you first start out in accountancy, you don't really have that that overview of all the different areas and what you want to do and stuff. So I was really uncertain at the time at Morris Crocker. So that was when I left to go to a bigger firm, Creston Reeves, in actually an outsourcing role. So stepped away from audit because at the time I thought that I didn't really have much of an interest in audit. But audit at different sort of departments at different accounting firms is a different experience. So audit at one firm is a different experience to audit at another firm. So went into an outsourcing role at Creston Reeves, and then spent some time at another firm doing a mixed role again in audit and accountancy. And again, the audit experience there was slightly different. And then went to Assets in a mixed role originally in accounting, in accounts and audit. But the move away for firms, or the move for firms, is to move away from mixed roles. It's to have a specialism. So you either are in audit or you're in accounts preparation. You can't really do both anymore. So at the time at Assets, I was quite enjoying the audit side of things. It was seen as the side that was maybe better for my career, better for my development. The people that I was working with were all on the audit side, so I had good relationships with that team more so than the people that were going down the accounting side, the accounts prep side. So it was a bit of both. It was a conscious decision and a little bit of it suited me at the time, fell into it kind of thing. But probably looking back was the best thing for my career, I think.
Yeah, and if you look back at that time, do you think that the time you spent in that accounts prep side kind of added strings to your bow that has benefited you now? Or do you think if you could have your time again, would you have just gone straight for audit, stuck it out in audit until you'd kind of gone from there?
To be honest, this is a thing that I've thought many times. So I have completely conflicting views on at different times. So sometimes I look back and I think I had or I still have, still going. I've had a really varied practice career. I did, like I said, accounts, audit, an outsourcing role at Creston Reeves, back to accounts and audit at another firm, then into accounts and audit at a bigger firm like Assets. So I have had a really broad experience in practice. So from that point of view, it's put me in good stead for now that I'm in industry, that I know little bits of lots of different things. So that is definitely an advantage. Sometimes where I see it as a disadvantage is if you stick to one thing, you tend to progress quite well and quickly in that one thing. So my career was, because I'd moved from accounts and audit, away from accounts and audit, back to accounts and audit, then to accounts and audit again, then just audit. You don't have that natural progression, which a lot of students would have, which would be, be at a graduate level for a big firm and just naturally go up the career ladder in that route. Whereas mine was a bit more, hop in here, hop in here, hop in here. So I didn't necessarily have that step up every time, like a lot of people have. So it's difficult to say. There are some times where I think it's really put me in good stead. And there's sometimes where I think, would I have been better off sticking to just that one thing? But I probably wouldn't change it, because at the time you don't know what it is you're going to end up doing. You just follow the path that feels right at the time.
Yeah, and I guess, walking through that path, as you said, there are things that you've added to your skill set that somebody just focused purely in audit. And Definitely. It's difficult to know exactly what bits of that has helped you later on in your career, I guess, because you've not just had that pure audit focus, knowing the bits that you'd missed as such. Before we dive into a little bit more in Lewis's career, though, if you are watching this, the SAN Games Night is on Friday, the 20th of March. If you haven't yet signed up, dive into the LinkedIn group or drop me a DM and we can get you there. Pool tournament, darts tournament, and should be a good fun evening. So during this time with Assets, obviously you then qualified. Was it always a conscious decision that you were going to be looking to leave practice at that point, or were you thinking perhaps staying in practice was the career option for you? Talk me through that thought process.
So probably early on in my career, I always thought that I'd end up in industry eventually. It wasn't necessarily a conscious. I didn't have it all planned out to say that as soon as I qualify or shortly after I qualify that I'd leave into industry, and I didn't have that roadmap necessarily, but I knew that I'd always end up in industry at some point. I think it always interested me a little bit more, being more involved with one company, and sort of the idea of influencing decisions in a company, rather than sometimes audit can feel, it feels a little bit transactional, and being in practice you're on an engagement, or working on an audit on a client for a month or 2 months or whatever, and then you're moving off onto something else. You don't have that time to really focus and learn all of the intricacies of that particular company. You only have a certain period of time and up to a certain level. So no, I didn't have like a specific roadmap to leave at that time. I mean, part of my decision was possibly that I wanted progression, and from seeing other colleagues that were maybe a little bit higher level than me, that progression didn't necessarily seem like it was there at some points. So that sort of plays into it, but it's unique to whatever firm someone's at. People have a different experience, and the way firms do things vary from firm to firm. So
yeah, absolutely. And so at that point, you've obviously moved into more of a kind of technical financial accounting route.
Yeah.
Was that the conscious decision that was probably where you saw your career going, rather than something more commercial, or perhaps something more varied in like an SME or something? Or were you kind of open to all of the options? Where was your kind of head at that time?
I was probably open to opportunity, to opportunities, I guess, on different types of roles. But I think looking back, doing my ACA studies and being in audit, I feel like being in that technical sort of role suits me more. Those are the, just looking back at the exams that I did at ACA, those were the exams that I did better in, and I preferred learning. Some of the more, I think one, business strategy and technology, was one that was really wordy and more about the direction of a company, but more from like you say, like a commercial view, rather than like from a pure figures analysis kind of point of view. And I didn't necessarily enjoy that. So technical accounting role was a conscious decision, I guess. It seemed to suit my expertise in my career more.
Okay, so let's now wind your kind of mind back probably 18 months or so. A few months into your current role. How were those first few months? That's probably the biggest question I get, is the jump from practice into industry. It's the one point in your career where you're going from a role where so well, you've got all the experience, to a role that is something you've never done before. You're sitting the other side of the fence. It is a completely different world. Yeah. How were those first few months? Did you have any kind of concerns, reservations about whether you'd made the right move, or kind of where was your head at?
Yeah, so I think the change from being in practice, you got to remember I was in practice since 2016 to 2024 when I left. So it's all for a long time. So yeah, the jump, or the move, should I say, the difference for the first few months was big, I would say, and not in the ways that you'd always think. So it's more like there isn't that structure. So when you're in practice, there's very much that set ways of doing things. You're very, very constrained into how you do things and what you do. And your day is, although you're on different clients, different audits, different companies, they're similar. You're going into an audit, you're doing the planning, you're doing the field work, you're doing the completion, it follows the same process every time. But in industry, and when I first went into Portsmouth Water, you're finding that you're having completely unique things thrown at you. Like pieces of work that you're like, you don't even know where to start, because it might be a piece of work that no one's done before. You might have to improve something, or create a process for something, or account for something that's never been done before. And you do have that in audit, where maybe you're doing an audit for a new client, for example, where you've got to do that legwork to set up that audit. But it just is not the same. It's not quite the same. You still have other audits to go off, for example, other clients, other people that have worked on a similar audit before to lean on for guidance.
And you've at least got processes that you can kind of follow, of this is what you should be doing. If you're creating something from scratch, or as you said, it's something that nobody's ever done before in that business. It's kind of a little bit head scratching, isn't it? Where did you turn at that point? Were you able to kind of lean back on your studies? Was there a specific people within the business that you could lean to, or was it a case of going away and doing some research and kind of asking questions and going from there?
It's all of those things, to be honest. There is still someone at my current role, Portsmouth Water, that's got some of that experience, who I can lean on and use his knowledge to sometimes help. Falling back on my studies, I tried it. You can try it, but sometimes falling back on your studies is, as I'm sure many people will understand, going back off a textbook example of something is very different to a real world experience. So definitely the studies help understand the concept of things, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to fully go through, a technical accounting issue purely based off what you learn in your studies. You've got to use that as the groundwork, but you've got a lot of building to do up from that. And a lot of research as well. So all of those things. And this isn't just a thing that was from when I first went into the role. It's something that I have to do all the time. There's always new things coming up, and new things that need to be done. New questions coming at you, where you have to use those three things and more all the time.
Yeah. Okay. And was there one thing that now that you wish you'd have known 18 months ago when you first made that move out of practice?
Not like a specific piece of knowledge. I think you mean more like a technique, maybe.
Just something that if with the power of hindsight, if you could go back and say, don't do this, or here's this piece of skill set that you've gained, or this piece of experience. Is there something that you wish you could have had 18 months ago that you feel like you've got now?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Probably not have that fear of not looking stupid, but asking a question about something that, there are going to be lots of things moving into industry. There's, every single company is different, and they have really specific acronyms and specific things that, specific just company specific things, where you're not going to have a clue what they mean to begin with, and it's not a problem to ask and challenge. So that's definitely one thing. And another thing is probably just to have that belief that you do know what you're doing, and you are there because you're good enough to do that job. But it's daunting when you first go in, because you feel like not like you don't belong, that's not quite the right word, but you feel like, because your background in practice is so different, you think, how am I going to slot in, or take all of that and just slot it into this new role? And sometimes that makes you think, like, can you do it? And the answer is, if you just sort of believe in what you're saying and the things that you're doing, that puts you in a much better position than if you're sort of doubting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we said it earlier about that move from practice into industry is a whole different world. But actually, there's a reason why a lot of businesses, a lot of companies want somebody from practice and want that kind of straight from skill set. And yes, it's a learning curve. Yes, it's a different world. But actually, if you lean on that skill set, lean on that technical ability that you've gained and through your studies, through your practice, 9 times out of 10, that's what businesses want. And being able to say, do you know what, I don't know that, is honestly sometimes one of the most powerful things, because
Yeah.
they're not expecting you to know everything. It's something that I'm constantly talking to people about is, you know, nobody has, whenever they move jobs, has done that job before. And
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
they're going back to it. Every time you change jobs, there's going to be parts of a role, parts of the business you need to learn, you need to adapt, you need to develop. And so just being able to say, stick your hands up and say, do you know what, I can someone just explain to me what this is? Or, you know, I think I get this, but can I just bounce this off you to make sure I'm on the right path? Is, you know, it's such an important skill, because admitting what you don't know is almost as important as, you know, knowing what you do know as such.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so obviously you're you know, you've qualified, you've left practice, you're well on your way to the rest of your career. If you could go back now, or perhaps to the students that are watching this, is there one piece of advice, one nugget that you wish you'd known back then, or that perhaps you would pass on to yourself or the students watching for when they were a student?
Probably a specific one for students is, like, you know, the quicker you qualify and the quicker you get your studies done, the quicker your career really kickstarts, you know. And I know that, you know, so I did my AAT studies, for example, before I did my ACA. And sometimes you sort of sit there thinking, this is such a long journey ahead. Yeah, I'm halfway through my AAT and this is just the beginning. I've still got another big qualification to start after. But you know, once you've done one exam, you know, before you know it, you've done two, and then you're halfway through, and then you've done your AAT, and then you start your ACA. You know, in the moment it feels like, oh, this long road ahead, you know. But the quicker you get through it, and the more you just think, you know, every exam that you do is one step closer to being qualified. That's when you sort of really unlock your career, and lots of doors open, and you got lots of options to explore what you want to explore at that point.
No, absolutely. I think, yeah, as you said, it can be daunting. It can be, you know, when you're looking at 13, 14 exams, it looks like a big number, but knocking one off at a time,
exactly.
it makes a lot of sense, and it really does help grow things up. But that is it. Thank you so much for joining us, Lewis. It's been greatly appreciated. I think it's been fantastic for me being able to pick your brains, and I really hope it's been useful for all those people that are watching. If you are watching and you haven't yet jumped into the SAN community, drop me a DM or jump over on LinkedIn. Hopefully your relevant reps will have the link to join. Be sure to check back next month, as we've got another excellent guest lined up discussing their career and the lessons they learned along the way.